Everybody knows the iconic characters from Marvel. Spider-Man, Deadpool, hell, even Daredevil. And a lot of people know the iconic DC characters, Batman, Superman. But does everyone know the iconic characters from Image Comics? Hell, has anyone even heard of Image Comics? Let's talk about that. In 1992, a comic book company was founded by Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and many other members of the comic book community. They got their own ideas and decided to put all their minds together to make a comic book company. The whole reason the comic book company came to life is because all the artists and writers felt like they didn't get to do whatever they want with their own characters because Marvel and DC had very strict rules for their characters. So they decided, we're going to leave and we're going to go make our own company. And that is how Image Comics was created. Why don't we talk about some of the titles from Image Comics now? The first comic book series I want to talk about is Spawn, created by Todd McFarlane, who is one of the founders of Image Comics. In May 1992, the world of comic books changed forever as Todd McFarlane created the comic book series known as Spawn. Spawn is a story about loss, judgment, and also superhero action, as Al Simmons, a government agent, dies on a mission or by betrayal by a fellow partner, makes a deal with the devil himself, and now has to live with the curse of being a hellspawn, and sees the sad true reality of life and death itself. Spawn is actually a really hated character in the comic book community now. Everyone says that Todd McFarlane cannot write and he can only draw, but I really disagree. I enjoy the Spawn stories. There are definitely parts which I don't really find that interesting, but it also does save itself in later issues. I really enjoy Spawn, and if you're just looking for a darker comic book series and also a bit emotional, I think Spawn is definitely a great series to check out. Let's talk about another comic book creator with one of his most iconic work, Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead. Yes, I know the other title, we'll talk about that later, but I want to talk about The Walking Dead because I actually have an amazing story with this book, and I believe it's one of the greatest indie comic books of all time. This is just such an amazing story, but let's not spoil it, I'll get right into it right now. Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead changed comic books forever, because then it showed that comic books weren't just about superheroes, but actually about real stories. This is a zombie apocalypse story with main character Rick Grimes waking up after an accident in the new world that he lives in, full of zombies. He finds out the truth of what's happened over the years, and he sees betrayal, trust, and makes new connections with the people he loves. But all that changes with one mistake that he makes for the rest of his life. Okay, yes, now it's time. Let's talk about Robert Kirkman's most famous work of art, and that is Invincible. Invincible is a superhero story, but it's also a bit on the darker side. It's now very popular with the Prime TV show. Invincible has never been more popular than when it was released. This is such an amazing book. It's a great read. If you like Marvel and DC, but you want to read something a bit more different, I highly recommend Invincible, or even just watching the show. But the book is very different. Well, not very different, but it's got some differences from the show, which really stand out, and it's also a longer story, and I think, personally, the book is more enjoyable than season 1 of the show. Fight me on that, I do not care. Now, I want to talk about a more recent comic book from Image Comics, and it is Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. This is an amazing story. I don't know that much about Transformers, but I decided to pick this up because apparently it's really good, and it was amazing. I want to read the second trade. This really got me into Transformers now. I think it's an amazing book. Great storytelling. Robert Kirkman has now actually taken this over. So yes, Robert Kirkman is like a big part of Image Comics. But yeah, he's now taken over Transformers, but Daniel Warren Johnson did such a great job with this. It's actually so much fun. Like, it's such a fun book. I read it all in one day. But yeah, it is amazing. So yes, the new Transformers story from Daniel Warren Johnson, who does Image Comics' Do a Powerbomb, Wonder Woman, and Dead Earth, alongside the showrunner Robert Kirkman, which we talked about with Invincible and The Walking Dead. And it reimagines Hasbro's robots in disguise for a brand new generation. So obviously it's the Transformers versus the Decepticons, with 3 new people joining the story, 3 humans to be in fact. And it's actually a really sad story, but it's also got some of the best art I've ever seen. And I think this book is definitely one of the best comic books I've ever read. So, do I believe that Image Comics is better than something like Marvel or DC? Yes and no. Here's what I want to talk about. Image do a great job at making comic books, but they don't just do superhero stuff. They do horror stuff. They do like life stories and all that, between like romance and all that. I think that's great. That means that there is a comic book for everyone. I highly believe that there is a comic book for everyone. But do I think, like, for example, I enjoy Spawn issue 13 more than a Moon Knight issue 13? Yes and no, because it's just who you like. It depends on who you like. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you don't, you don't. Again, I do believe that there is one comic book for everyone, and I think that you can all find that. But now to answer the question of the video. Do I think Image Comics are the best comic book company of all time? No. Listen, I love Image Comics, but I also love Marvel. I love DC more recently with Batman The Long Halloween. And there's also like other companies like Boom Comics with their other comic book series, such as Something is Killing the Children, which I've actually ordered and can't wait to read. But I've heard great things about it. I have read many comic book companies and they are all great. They all have their goods, they all have their bads. But it's just what you want to read. You read what you want to read. Read the comics you buy. But anyways, thanks for watching, Mars. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more, and I'll see you all in the next one.